Hey everyone, and welcome as we continue our study through the 250 events in the life of Christ. We are studying the New Testament Gospels in chronological order, and today we are hitting Jesus helping a man or healing a man with leprosy, and that's going to come from Matthew 8 1 through 4, Mark 1 40 through 45, and Luke 5 12 through 16. And so we see in all three instances here. That large crowds had started to follow Jesus, and as he was coming down out of the mountainside around Galilee, and suddenly a man with leprosy approaches him. And here's an interesting thing: um, he approaches him and calls him Lord. He calls Jesus Lord. He says, "If you are willing, you can heal me and make me clean." And so it's an interesting approach to Jesus. It wasn't, you know, maybe you can, or could you try, or I'm hopeful that he says, if you're willing, I know you can. And so, let's hit at leprosy here first for a while. We this is not something we deal with in America, especially today. I mean, you can get leprosy from some animals. I think we live down in here in South Georgia, and armadillos, I believe, carry leprosy or some form of skin disease. So you have to be careful with that. But I mean, it's not something that we have cures for it. If we can take care of it. They didn't back then, and so it was an absolutely terrifying disease that they didn't have a cure for back then. And so, but not only was it a flesh eating disease, it was horrible. It caused literally, it's gross, but it caused your basically your limbs, your fingers, your all that stuff, your flesh to rot and die and to fall off. And so, but not only was it horrible in that way, it was also very isolating because you were banished from society. You were outcast. People had wanted nothing to do with you. And if you got close to them, they would throw rocks at you. And you had to actually walk around announcing that you were unclean, right? And so, can you imagine in society what it would be like to walk around yelling to everyone, letting them know that you had some disease and you were unclean, and that they couldn't have anything to do with you? So it was a very, very isolating disease. And so he approaches Jesus with the attitude of, "Hey, I know you can if you're willing to do so." And we see in verse 3 of Matthew that Jesus touches him. So Jesus reaches out and touches him and says, "I'm willing, be healed." And instantly the leprosy goes away. And this is, again, we see this it wasn't a slow, "Oh, well, I'll heal you," and it took a couple of days. It was, anytime Jesus healed someone, it was absolutely instant. Absolutely just happened immediately and showed his full power over this. And so he then tells him to go and uh, show himself before the priest, which was a required law for those who were healed of leprosy. If you want to look that up, it's in Leviticus 13 and 14. And so Jesus told him to go do that, but he also told him to be quiet. Now we don't see this. I got a note here on within the Matthew. He told him to be quiet, not to tell anyone about it, but he didn't do that. We see that in Mark and Luke. And so he went out and continued on. So in Mark's account in verse 41, it's very similar. He approaches him, but one of the things that Mark points out in verse 41 is Mark records the emotional reaction of Jesus. We don't see that in Matthew and Luke, but in verse 41 it says he was moved to compassion, and the Greek word here, and I cannot pronounce it. I got it in the notes, that you can, if you're following along with us in the notes, and it's a very long Greek word, but it literally means to move one's bowel. So basically, Jesus felt such compassion for this man that it stirred his stomach, right? And I don't know if anyone's ever, if anyone watching this has ever experienced that, but it's that movement that you see someone, you see someone hurting so bad it almost makes you sick, right? And so that's what we see here with Jesus. And this Greek word in verse 41 is only used in the Gospels 12 times, and it's only used to describe the compassion of Jesus. So it was such a compassion that maybe, I don't know, I won't say that others can't feel it, but it was to a level that it was on Jesus' level of this compassion that he felt for this man. And then we go into 45, where, again, Jesus asks him to be quiet, and only Mark really records the leopard's full disobedience. Luke hints at it because he talks about the crowds following him, but we see here the result of the leopard's disobedience is that Jesus could no longer enter the city or a city without being mobbed by those seeking to be cured of diseases. And so it kind of helped, it kind of hindered his ministry a little bit. And so he had to stay kind of to the outskirts. It says Jesus kept to the relatively uninhabited regions to allow the excitement over his cures to kind of die down a little bit. He had to let it die down. And Luke also notes this, that he used the wilderness for prayer. We're going to talk about that in verse 5 and 16. So we see, Jesus wasn't asking these people to be quiet because, for any wrong reason. He was doing it so he could help, hopefully, continue his ministry unhindered. And there's been some discussion about, well, did this guy sin by not obeying God? I don't know. I'm not sure how to classify those. I don't know. I don't think this is one of those commandments of do this or you're sinning. But Jesus was asking them not to do this for a reason. But I think any one of us, absolutely any one of us who would have experienced this, there's no way we could have kept our mouth shut about this. I mean, if you've had leprosy, something that you knew was eventually going to kill you and was a horrible, horrible, not only physical disease, but emotionally, damaging disease, there's no way if you're just some guy touches you and heals you from it, that you're going to just not tell anyone about it. And so, again, we hit that. And one of the things I forgot to mention too is verse 3, I kind of went over it. Jesus touches this guy. And the Pharisees would have never done it. The religious leaders, the religious people of the world at that time would have never done that, because it was the most unclean act you could have done, was to touch someone with leprosy. And so again, we still see that compassion of Jesus, because he could have healed him without touching him. We know that. We've seen him, heal someone from a day's journey away. So we know that Jesus can heal anyone in the way he wants to. But he shows this man his compassion that we talk about, and that we see in Mark 1:41, is he touches him because he needs to. He has to show him that compassion. He has to show him, like, I don't see you as unclean, right? You may be unclean, only so I don't. I'm going to show you this compassion, and we need to be that. That we got to be careful, obviously, with some of the things we do, but we've got to make sure that our compassion and that we show that same kind of humility and compassion and to other people, and not just be a standoffish, oh, well, I care about you. Yes, you're welcome. I love you, but I'm going to love you from a distance over here. That's not how Jesus worked. Jesus got down in the dirt, right? Jesus got dirty. He got down in the hard, spots and where people were, and he got down there with them. And many times in Christianity, we want to, talk about Christianity and talk about how we love people, but we want to do it from a distance, or we want to do it from behind our church buildings, right? We don't really want to get out in the world and get dirty. And Jesus, man, his entire ministry was about going out and getting dirty and working hard in ministry, and that's what it takes for us. And so I want us to see that, and I want to continue to bring that up when we see Jesus doing those things. So again, we see Jesus heal a man with leprosy. He touches him, which would have been just not, I mean, never would have happened in from any other religious person. He shows such compassion to him, like it moves him so much that it makes him sick to his stomach. It moves his bowels, it stirs his bowels. And so we again continue to see that. And then verse 16, again, after he does this stuff, we see him go away and get rest and go into prayer. And again, as I talked about yesterday, we need to make sure that we are continuously getting away, pulling away, and praying and communicating and communing with God and worshiping God on our own. We need to get away and do this on our own, because it is a restoration or restorative thing that we need to do. So again, I hope y'all are still enjoying these videos. I appreciate everyone who's watching them. Again, I ask that you share them if you can with anyone who you think that this would be helpful for a daily little kind of devotional study through the scriptures like this. And again, if you haven't subscribed, I always ask that, take the time to subscribe so you get the alerts and we can send out your messages. And as always, I appreciate you for watching.